the singular cost in our industry. So you take all along the chain, you take the person picking the cotton, right, in the fields. You say, okay, that costs so much. It costs so much to make that into yarn. It costs so much to make it into fabric. It costs so much to sew it. It costs so much to transport to North America. So much to retail it and stuff. The singular biggest cost along that whole line is the markdown, right? Is having the wrong inventory in the wrong place, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing larger. So most retailers, they might start at 60% margin, but by the time they mark it down, it's at their margin is down to 40 or 35%. Huge dollars, right? Costs there. And so going back to why is this all necessary? We have the technology. We can figure out what people want. We put up samples. They come in, they vote with their credit cards, and we make what they want. And we deliver it fast. So that's what Next is about.
Hello and welcome to Hot Seat, the show where we interview amazing e-commerce brands to uncover the secrets of their success and provide insights into scaling their direct consumer marketing efforts. Today is a big one for me. About 3 years ago, I walked into a boutique and came across my first pair of DUER performance denim. After putting them on, I realized that I was probably going to be a DUER customer forever. The fabric, the fit, the feel of these pants is like no other. Honestly, you got to grab a pair. So when I read a recent article about DUER's unique on-demand approach to pivoting from retail to direct-to-consumer e-commerce, I pounced on the opportunity to have them on Hot Seat, reached right out. They got right back to me. So I'm Eric Dick, and along with Pilothouse CEO Dave Steele, we're thrilled to have fashion industry legend and DUER founder Gary Lennett, as well as Director of E-commerce Calvin Roix on the Hot Seat. Welcome. How are you guys doing?
We're good, considering everything. We're doing pretty good.
Yeah, juggling a million things, but it's all good right now.
Yeah, that's my thing. Juggling a million things, and then also trying to educate my 6-year-old.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's an absolute fun. So we're in Victoria. You guys are on the mainland in Vancouver, which is really cool. Gary, why don't you tell a little bit about your background and how DUER came to be?
Okay, well, because I'm an old guy, so yeah, my background, it goes back quite far. But the sound bites are essentially that I was in the fashion business for almost 34 years before I started DUER. DUER is a relatively new venture for me, and it really came out of an effort for me to leave the fashion business, because I told my wife and my former partners I was sick and tired of doing what I was doing before. I'd sort of gone through 4, 5, 6 cycles of selling mostly denim. I had lost my passion for it. I was on, again, selling, aren't I excited? We got destructed jeans again for the 5th time in my career, right? And I didn't really care too much. And that comes through when you're trying to, if you're not passionate in this business, then you should get out of the business. And I've always said that. So I told them that I was going to leave the business. I started downsizing my lifestyle. I gave up my cars and wanted to get healthier. And I was riding my bike everywhere. And I noticed that if I was riding my bike and I had an important meeting to go to, I couldn't find anything in the marketplace that I would buy. And because coming from a fashion perspective, I'm not going to buy something that's got synthetic rich and has a sheen to it. I'm not going to put a sport jacket over that or try to dress it up with other shoes. And being the serial entrepreneur I am, I saw sort of this market opportunity. I said, okay, well, I'm going to, and at the time I thought maybe it would be a little retirement gig. I'd open up a little store and do a little bit of e-commerce, a little bit of wholesale. And what I found was that I just sort of stumbled on something that was a little bit before its time, but was much, much larger. And that was really the need for what I call lifestyle apparel. That's not, so what we did is we took, in our industry, the term athleisure was coined a number of years ago, primarily by Lululemon. Nike and Adidas and a whole bunch of others sort of dove into it. But athleisure is après gym. And what I stumbled into was this category of apparel that's not après gym, but taking real clothes and putting technical into them. And that's how it started. Again, very small company. There was only 3 of us, and we've been growing, doubling in size every year since we started 6 years ago. And now have, as you alluded to, with our new Next program is our 4th channel, but we sell wholesale, Ecom. We have our own retail stores, and we sell this Next program, which is essentially a pre-sale program that we just launched today. So it's good timing.
That is great timing. How big is the team now?
We're approximately 25 people inside here in Vancouver, and then of course we have sales agents and distributors around the world.
Totally, that's our size as well. We're right around there and growing as well. Well, that's a really interesting story. Let's go right into this e-commerce pivot. Like, I came across this article on Retail Insider that we're constantly interviewing brands who are in the middle of this pivot, basically recognizing that direct to consumer is not only a growth channel, but it's the only channel right now. And I think the brands that have the good fundamentals, have their supply chains figured out, have a great product market fit, they're in a great position to benefit by this pivot. So can you talk a little bit about your approach, specifically this Next approach, this on-demand approach versus a more traditional e-commerce approach?
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking a lot about Next over the last week and doing a lot of interviews, and I can't say that I hadn't been thinking about it for a long time. I'm not going to tell you that sort of COVID struck 9 weeks ago and I just came up with this idea, or that we just came up with this idea. This is something that I've wanted to do probably for 5 or 6 years, and really was built into the genesis behind this company. A lot of the brand values really align with what Next is doing. And in fact, we started this company when I started it 5 or 6 years ago, and I told you that story about me riding my bike. We started with 4 crowdfunding programs. So every time we launched a new product, we did it through Kickstarter. And it was through that experience that I started to realize just how, or start to confirm just how inefficient what we traditionally have done in this marketplace is. And that is where we go out, we design a line, we go and build speculative inventory, we bring it into our stores or into other people's stores, then we put a lot of money into marketing. And then, if your batting average is 70%, is really good in our industry, right? You're trying to anticipate what people want. Now, we're not really trend driven, so our batting average was better than 70% because we're pretty poor basic line. As I say, I moved away from sort of that trend driven fashion business. It was more about solving solutions and giving people core basics. But in any event, the model of not trying to drive or create demand through marketing, but trying to gauge demand and then meeting that demand just made so much sense to me. And as I started to hire young people like Calvin, who educated me on e-commerce, I started to understand that we can even see what people are searching for. Like, why are we, we know what they're looking for. I remember the first time someone told me someone was looking, that one of the biggest searches in jeans was for rock star jeans, right? You can get pretty finite on what people are looking for. So why am I going to look at trend reports, which are global and mostly inaccurate? And again, the wastage that comes with this is just incredible. So I just, I know this is a bit long-winded, but I just wanted, one of the things that has really stuck with me for the last, since the inception of this company is a singular fact. And that is that, it's 2 singular facts. 67 pounds per year of clothing goes into landfills. 67 pounds per year per person in North America goes into landfills, which is a mind-boggling amount of waste. Now, this is mostly because of fast fashion and the race to the bottom with prices and stuff, and people just buy clothing and throw it out. And the second part, though, is more on the B2B side, and this is probably a little known fact, is that the singular cost in our industry. So you take all along the chain, you take the person picking the cotton, right, in the fields, You say, okay, that costs so much. It costs so much to make that into yarn. It costs so much to make it into fabric. It costs so much to sew it. It costs so much to transport to North America. So much to retail it and stuff. The singular biggest cost along that whole line is the markdown, right? Is having the wrong inventory in the wrong place, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing larger. So most retailers, they might start at 60% margin, but by the time they mark it down, it's at their margin is down to 40 or 35%. Huge dollars, right? Costs there. And so going back to why is this all necessary? We have the technology. We can figure out what people want. We put up samples. They come in, they vote with their credit cards, and we make what they want. And we deliver it fast. So that's what Next is about.
That's very cool. So even just one step back on it, it literally, I was looking at it today. It's Kickstarter for jean styles specifically. When you commit to it, how much do you put down?
So essentially, you're buying the product. So you'll say, okay, I like that pair of shorts. I'm going to buy that. It costs me, $80. You get it at a discounted price, but you're not going to get it delivered tomorrow. You're going to get it delivered. We have a quick response manufacturing backend. And so you'll get it delivered within 2 to 4 weeks after the end of what we're calling the project. Or the campaign. So, you'll get it approximately 5 or 6. So you have to wait a little bit longer. You get a better price because we pass on the savings, all that efficiency that I talked about, or inefficiency with the old way. We're now giving you a better price on the product that you would have paid, because it is more efficient for us. And really the cost to you is you have to wait a little bit longer.
About how long?
Well, as I say, right now we're running 3-week campaigns. So if you bought today, it's the first day today. And we'll deliver it between 2 and 4 weeks after the end of the campaign. So that you're waiting, if you bought today, you're basically going to wait 5 to 6 weeks, something like that.
And Eric, I'd say the other... Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, Kyle, after you.
No, I was just saying, and I think, we obviously debated this idea between in-house versus Kickstarter model again, and sort of going back and forth. And I think for us, Kickstarter was such a big platform for us to get going. And now that we have the audience and that sort of base there, the idea was like, well, we can't own the customer in Kickstarter necessarily. As soon as they're done that project or backing us, we sort of lose that arm of communication with them, right? And so the idea of controlling the whole process from start to finish in-house, plus owning that customer relationship from start to finish, was one of also the main reasons that we were like, okay, let's just build this in-house and have that model versus sort of this outsourced Kickstarter model.
Interesting.
Very cool. And I was gonna add, my understanding of the Kickstarter model is that you get to test these concepts, right? So with your new, your next project, could you take me through how do you guys look at the concept development? Is that a big part of the business now, where you're able to actually test out many more concepts than you would have in a traditional model? And how have you found that? Because I know a lot of marketers we work with, or brands we work with, are a little bit slower in that side of the business because it's expensive to test concepts generally. Yeah.
Well, for sure. And I mean, again, it's the product, it allows us to be, obviously from a product development, for us to develop. So let me back up. I'm not trend driven. We're not trend driven. So we're about problem solution, right? That's how we develop product, right? The world doesn't need more clothing for, for no reason, right? They don't need just another shade of blue of blue jeans, right? So we're developing through a problem solution right from the product development. But now all we have to do is develop a sample, a prototype, and we put it up. So it really frees us to develop way more ideas and let the marketplace tell us what resonates and what doesn't. So frankly, a lot of what we do, especially in the beginning and even to this day, is really just what we want to wear. Like where are the gaps? And like, as I said, like I wanted to find a pair of jeans that had enough stretch in it and technical aspects that I could ride my bike anywhere, but still look good enough for me to go into a meeting. I couldn't find that in the marketplace.
Sorry, go ahead. And Dave, I'd say like the other piece where the good tension always happens is like on the product concept side. Generally, we've got these like great all day meetings deciding sort of what concepts or product we're going to develop. And it's sort of this both data informed and then sort of this gut sort of feel that I think balances out really, really well. So, we'll come to the table and say, look, we're seeing a ton of trend in requests around size 40 waist in the silhouette, or, here's the trend, like tons of people right now, like all we're getting is this idea of how do we create more shorts, because our category is pretty thin in that area. And so our team comes with the data piece, and then the design and Gary have this like pre-informed decision based on, what they're seeing in the market and a bit of that gut feel. And that's sort of where you find that balance on some of that product concept development.
I will say too, when you talk about the expense of testing product, I've always, for many years I've been fascinated what the tech companies do when they develop minimally viable, especially in the gaming industry, and they develop these minimally viable product and go out with it. I've always wanted to do that because it is very expensive when we're doing one prototype, we don't have to perfect it. We can figure out if the marketplace really wants the product, and then we can go and do all the minutia that it takes to perfect the product. So it's just a very efficient way of doing things.
Sorry to interrupt, Gary. Calvin, you spoke about internalizing that process. Is there a platform you guys are using? Because I do know off the top of my head, I got a few other brands who are toying with this idea.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any advice in terms of platform usage, how to set that up, how to make it happen?
Before COVID, that kind of was our store piece as well. Like the stores were meant for these like limited run, come in, try it. We'd sort of get feedback before sort of turning these mass quantities of product in, and they sort of had a feedback form that they would capture some of that data in. And that was really where we got the majority of it. On the ecom side, I mean, we're just running it against like, when we receive customer service tickets. We've tried opening even right now on the site, for DUER Next, a comments section so people can start providing a bit more feedback. But outside of that, like I said, we haven't pivoted too much in that side yet. Retail was really sort of meant to be that like, let's run 20 products, 20 units of a specific product, get feedback in retail, and then decide whether we want to go ecom, wholesale, and sort of go bigger across it. But yeah, I don't know if that answered your question necessarily in terms of feedback, but I would say like, yeah, just figure out how and it can be simple. Like, again, we have product feedback forms that we send to customers, VIP customers on a regular basis, and sort of just capture data that way. And I think they feel engaged too, obviously, during the process, right?
Very cool. Yeah, we'll stay in touch with that also, as I think a number of brands are moving this way.
Mm-hmm.
We all got to work together and prove out the model, because I think
totally.
it needs to be proven out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. I think, obviously with e-commerce, a big appeal for some people is the speed of it, is that the fact that you can get it, within a week. So it's going to be interesting to model. Like, I'm wondering, like, with your e-commerce efforts, what are you seeing right now? Like, which of your, we're all about those, the frontline ads, which of those e-commerce initiatives are like, because people can still buy through the traditional means on the site, right? You could still just rock up and buy a pair of jeans and have it in a week. What are you seeing in terms of like activity right now? I guess it's early. It's day one.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think what we're excited to see is what comes of it and sort of where we're best, so we didn't just turn on ads for just Next and we stopped, all the other programs we're running. Like you said, sort of we're viewing this as like a new arm of the business. And, as of today, it's been huge today just because we've sort of put in, 110% on the launch. But I am excited to see like sort of what that spillover is. And I think, when we were deciding what budget to put towards, Next by DUER or, our current programs, I think we both felt like it'll be interesting to see, because I think there'll be spillover across the different initiatives, right? Because again, it is hosted all in that DUER ecosystem where it's not you're sending someone a Kickstarter and then hoping they find about your brand on search or, paid social again. But yeah, it is going to be an interesting, I think, model for the next little bit here. And we're excited to see sort of where to put our ad spend and dollars against what programs are driving that bulk of that business. And like, it goes all the way down to the cart level. Are we upselling when you come to buy pre-sale and you're like, okay, I'm fine to wait, a month to get this product, but actually right now I need that pair of jeans that you guys currently have on your site. So I'm just going to buy that right now. And so you sort of get two different shipments of your product, but you sort of balance it out with like, hey, I'll pay full price for the pair of jeans I now, and I'm willing to wait, for 4 weeks to get this other pair at a discounted price.
And the whole thing with the Kickstarter model is it's like a different purchasing experience. You're actually like, you're kind of becoming part of something in a way. It's like you're you're an early investor. You're getting your investment in the shape of a discount, but really you feel like you're maybe more part of something. And so that you are going to be more willing to wait in that situation. So it'll be interesting to see what your customer LTV ends up looking like from the people that buy through this method versus the others.
Yeah. And I think what I think we're so strong at, and I, Eric, I'm kind of similar to you. And I found out about DUER sort of 3 years ago when I was like, a bunch of groomsmen were getting ready to go to a wedding, and we were like, man, we just want comfortable pants that we can dance in, look formal, and sort of discover the brand. And I think
a lot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Let them stretch out with you. And I think our repeat business is probably one of the strongest pieces that I've come across. Like our repeat business and our loyal customers are so strong. So I think, right now what we're doubling down on is like really our VIP loyal customers. Like we didn't go heavy on the acquisition side of digital marketing for this program right now. We're sort of dabbling in it a little bit on the paid social side, but really it's like the bulk of the focus and budget is going towards like remarketing, lower funnel, who's our most loyal guys and customers. Cause I think those are the people that are like, hey, I own 5 pairs of pants. I know I could buy from you guys right now, but I'm willing to wait 4 weeks because I'm getting a great deal. And I'm whether I buy now or 4 weeks, I was going to do that anyway. So yeah, but it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely stay in touch because I'm keen to see what the experiment looks like. Yeah. So just in terms of your e-commerce outbound efforts, you're saying that you're sort of in your infancy, even in the old program, when it comes to actually like direct to consumer sort of direct response ads. You've been doing that for a while.
Yeah, we've been doing that for a while. Even when Gary, I wasn't here for the Kickstarter piece, but you guys were running paid ads, and that was your main sort of brand awareness piece. And so, yeah, for us right now, to give you context, we were actually with an agency up until last month. And we'd always sort of looked at potentially bringing it back in-house. And so now we've sort of got someone in-house managing all our paid and performance marketing. But we've sort of been doing that now pretty like the bulk of our spend and marketing budget is on paid search, paid social. And now we're sort of dabbling in, obviously we still got like our affiliate program, but really I'd say actually one of our biggest switches has been like, how can we do as much rev share as possible? So, influencers, we're not paying you up front. We're doing a rev share model. Any sort of publications or affiliates, it's sort of all rev share based, which during this period has obviously been like a big win for us because it's not cash out the door. It's like we only pay you out when we're sort of getting cash in, right?
Smart. Yeah. We run influencers with a lot of our brands. I've just knocked off, this is my 3rd interview in 2 days, and everyone is going crazy with influencer. And you either call it dark posts or whitelisting, where you actually get the influencer to give you access to their account and you actually run budget so that you can not just have the hit of their initial thing, their initial post, but you can actually run very controlled frequency capped campaigns to their audiences.
Yeah.
And so if you're not doing that, I would recommend it.
No, we're not doing that, but it's funny. I've actually always wanted to do that with our wholesale clients, which has been, a little bit tougher, but the idea of like, what makes us also great is we've got 3 different arms, right? We got wholesale, retail, and then the e-com side. And I've always wanted to say like, we work with some great retailers. We'll actually give you $1,000 and let us sort of get back-end access to your ad account as like an advertiser. You've just brought DUER into the store. So it seems like a win-win, right? Like they're getting to promote their mom and pop store or their bigger brand, and we're giving them, and they're promoting the DUER space. So yeah, it's an interesting, and especially as we head down into the States, I think our brand awareness is so strong in Canada. And so the States has obviously been a bit of a tougher market for us to crack. And most people in the States do hear about us through third-party retailers. And so again, if that's what we're seeing, and it's like, how can I leverage their audiences to, come get exclusive product at DUER that they couldn't buy at their local retailer?
It's such a cool story. We talked with Vessi earlier on as well, and they're approaching 9 figures in sales kind of thing, and they're still, and that's mostly in Canada. It's crazy. We work with so many clients whose main focus is the US, and so it's amazing to hear that there's still so much scale potential within Canada, and then once you do crack that nut, it's really the sky's the limit.
Totally. Yeah, no, US is definitely, it's funny. It's like we're running against so many different variables that I think we're like, one example is like, they're the exact same site, but conversion rate in Canada is just way higher than it is in the States, And so then we're like, is it a more price sensitive market? So we've run different A/B tests across different types of discounts to see, is that going to move the needle? And on the paid side, what's tough is it's just your dollar doesn't go as far there as it does in Canada. And you're sort of, we've gone through 2 different types of strategies. One, which was like, how do we, potentially just target certain geo or cities in the States, like Seattle, California, New York. And so we saw, that's where the majority of our ecom purchases are. And so at one point we said, let's take our entire acquisition spend and just focus on Seattle, New York, and LA and Denver, I think it was. And let's see if like we can move the needle more than sort of doing this broad-based approach across all of the states. And so even though we were able to move the needle in those cities, it didn't make up for the loss that we did when we were doing a broad approach. Because I think it just wasn't letting Facebook's algorithm work, where it was finding that low-hanging fruit across, all different parts of the state. So we're now back into a bit more of that broader funnel, sort of not geo-targeted ad spend. But yeah, states is an interesting one.
Yeah. Before COVID, what was your split in terms of retail versus online sales?
Do you want me to, or go ahead, Gary?
Yeah, I mean, we were, so again, we have 3 channels, but in our direct to consumer arena, we were probably 60% online and 40% retail. And then we have a wholesale division that's a whole different, which is probably about 50%. It was 50% of our sales.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. And then what are your predictions for retail going forward? I guess no one really has any true predictions about what retail is going to shape up like, but like, what are your hopes? What are your sort of like, I guess hopes is the best way to put it, but where do you think retail is going to net out over the next year, like over this year?
I have first of all, when you say retail, like our wholesale business where we're selling to other retailers, I don't know. I mean, this is unprecedented, and I don't think anybody knows. I think I'd be lying to say I know. But I will tell you that in terms of our own brand stores, we have a very aggressive strategy, and we will move into the United States. We're opening our 3rd store in Calgary in July, which was signed before this crisis, and we are scheduled to open our 4th store in. We're looking at leases in either Seattle, LA, or Denver in September, October, cool. and then roll out more stores over the next 6 months. So we see there being opportunity there for a brand like ours, and we'll go at it quite aggressily.
That's cool.
We did also just launch we did also just launch like personal shopping in-store appointments. That was Monday for anyone in Vancouver. And then, we were just talking through today, because I think Toronto is slowly restarting up as well. So, and yeah, it's interesting, within the first, like this week, we were almost fully booked up on all our appointments. And I was pretty surprised by that, to be honest, just because it's like, we're in Gastown. It's not a super heavy walk by traffic unless the restaurants and everything else is going. But surprisingly, lots of people were sort of itching to get back in there. So it will be interesting. I totally hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Dave, I wanted, just to put you on the hot seat for a second here. Like, if you were, you've done a lot of these audits, you've looked at a lot of brands, creatives, with Pilothouse, we've scaled some brands really heavily. Like, what sort of feedback would you have about either the customer experience or the ad experience, or just the ways that you could see DUER scaling over the next 6 months, direct to consumer e-commerce?
Yeah, good question. Well, I did just open up, I've been looking at it for a few days now, but the Facebook ad library. And one thing I noticed that I wanted to shout out as, I think something you've done really well is you've put the product in use in your creative, right? So I'm looking at one where there's a guy with his leg up on the back of his truck, and like that is just that stance people can connect to, is like, oh man, when you're wearing the wrong pants, you actually can't perform that action, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to ask you guys, and I can see there's more active shots, photographer really, bent down low to get that perfect angle. And I just wanted to get in your head in terms of, your creative team and sort of their approach to doing that, and kind of how you go about making more of that creative.
Yeah, I think for us, like we've run so many different variations of creative over the past 2 years that I've been here. And one of those interesting trends that what we were trying to figure out this year was this urban creative versus this outdoor creative. And so urban being you're in the city, you're biking, and then sort of this outdoor creative where, I'm looking at one right now, he's on that rock taking a photo, or he's outside lifting, a pair of with his jeans with plywood to, go build something. And it's funny that outdoor aspirational creative way outperforms the urban creative, even though I think more people are obviously leveraging it in the urban setting. But what I think the outdoor space does show is not only do the shorts look good, and you can go on a hike and do all these, movements within it. That means it naturally translates to your urban lifestyle of getting on and off the bike. And so that's kind of been our thought process around how do we take these everyday simple movements, and instead of you ever feeling you're restricted from doing something, these pants offer that ability where you're I'm never going to have to worry about reaching my leg over the bike and hopping on going to another meeting. Because if the guy in the creative is, building something and stretching up onto the top of his truck, then clearly I can, get on a bike and ride for, 10 minutes to my next meeting.
Totally. And I mean, that's what we've seen as being that necessary evolution on the creative side to really go broad and scale US wide, is especially now with all the AI and the machine learning, we as marketers just input that creative that speaks to those either pain points or those benefits, new type of person someone wants to be. And then Facebook basically just goes and finds out, hey, this person engages, this person doesn't, this person engages, this person doesn't. And over time, you start to find those pockets where those certain lifestyle shots really connect. So, I mean, that would be, back to your point, Eric, that would certainly be my recommendation in terms of direction, is just keep mining for that next emotional trigger that you kind of you discover. And I think earlier you talked about influencers. So I think a lot of influencers are good at, posing in those, that's kind of where their minds are at. They are good at uncovering those lifestyle based solutions. So just going wide with them as well. And, out of every 10, maybe 1 or 2 of them might find that next pose that just kind of says it visually very quickly. You don't have to use words even.
Yeah, no, that's a great call. And I think we are trying to build out this, we're actually building out this ambassador program, which is ideally, it's a little less influencer in the sense of how do we create more of a relationship than sort of just sending, a one-off product and whatnot. But and I hear you. I mean, I think what's been challenging for us during this period is refreshing the creative, right? And getting new creative into market. We've sort of had to either reuse creative that we've run previously, which, I think sometimes I'm so close to it that I'm I feel like everyone's probably seen that ad. Right, and then it's it's probably the smallest piece of the pie that's come across our shorts ads that we ran last week, or last year. And then there was also that sensitivity analysis of I'm are people really going to take the fact that there's 2 guys hanging out together and being they're not social distancing? But then I do see the comments on the ads being you guys should take this down, it's not social distancing. And I'm I mean, hopefully you're able to
but the
separate
jeans are antimicrobial.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
My other favorite part.
So funny. But and that's where I think that's where we're trying to use influencers right now, is getting that creative and content.
Yeah, and I think and especially if you can get those dark posts or that whitelisting, the thing that we see again and again is that the newsfeed is such a competitive space, and that if you see an ad more than once, you're blind to it. So being able to come at people from different angles, and whether that's the interpretation of an influencer you may or may not like, or just seeing the same products in different lights from different perspectives, maybe solving the same issue, same benefits, even same pose, but just seeing those different reflections of people's opinions on the product, I think can really help unlock ROAS from your ads. How do you pronounce your last name, by the way? As soon as I saw ROAS, I thought ROAS.
It's close. Yeah, it's Rooks. Yeah, it's
Rooks.
Yeah.
Very cool. Nice. So here's a question I like to ask in some of the podcasts. If you just had a $50,000 grant gifted to you, where would you put that into the business right now to see the biggest return? Gary, what do you think about that?
Well, I think sorry.
Busy, popular guy.
For some reason it won't shut down. I think for me, what comes up for me is just going back to Calvin's comment about, that we get this loyalty. I mean, we know people love our product. We know that once we get them in our product, that we get repeat purchases. Our lifetime value is very strong. So for me, it's just about reach. So I'd put into digital advertising, and it's just a matter of getting people into our pants.
And when you have that mindset, like that allows you, he who pays the most for a customer wins. So if your model, if you know that your average consumer is going to be a lifetime wearer, which is like, that just allows you to be more aggressive on the acquisition front in order to acquire those users in the beginning. You combine that with a multifaceted approach. I think you have all the potential to be just massively scaling this thing over the next little while. It's really exciting business.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah, no, and I hear you. And then I think the piece is thank you for saying 50K into digital advertising. I'll take that any day, Gary. But I think it's also this other interesting piece of not only 50K and broadly, putting it into Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever it may be, and I know it's somewhat cliche or a little bit jargon to say, this, but what we're really trying to do now is how do we start building out a basic attribution model of really what's working and what's not, right? So, if really we got to get email signups, because once someone signs up to our emails and they go through our email flow, that converts them at a much quicker pace than seeing 10 Facebook ads and a Google search ad or whatever it may be, And so I think right now we're getting up to that point of we've got budget, and now it's how do we be a bit more efficient with it? Because now we can start seeing where people are coming in and trying to create some level of attribution model. But it's funny because, I've been to enough conferences and everyone says attribution. And then you sort of dig down and you're oh, okay, you're just running a survey. Sweet. Yeah. Same with us.
What was the quote from our last cast? It was a guy had a 2:30 a.m. call with a major CMO of Adidas in Germany. Yeah. And we asked him what question he asked him, and he asked him who is doing attribution properly, and the answer was nobody. Nobody in the industry is really doing attribution properly. It's something that we run up against multiple times with our clients, where different agencies are taking different credit for different things, and as the brand, I think it's obviously in your best interest to figure that out, so you can find those channels that are driving it. So
yeah, exactly.
Good on you.
Yeah, you look at the back end of Facebook, and it's your ROAS is 7-1 right now, and you're oh man, let's pump more money into Facebook. And then you look in Google Analytics, and it's everything is coming through paid search, and you're okay, sweet.
Double paying. So which are your main platforms right now? You got Facebook ads going, Instagram, Google. You on TikTok yet?
We're not on TikTok yet. No, I haven't made that leap over quite yet. I think resource space would be pretty stretched thin on that side. And then, like I said, I mean, the affiliate side is being pretty big for us during this period. So
what does that look like for you guys? Is that through Retail Me Not and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get off those coupon-based sites. But we've sort of got, again, that individual who's come on and handling all our performance marketing side. So we're doing a ton of affiliate, through email sponsorship with Dig or Need to Know or Daily Punt, especially most of the affiliate stuff is working in the States. So that's sort of where, again, we're seeing a pretty big return on investment. And, so we're using a back-end platform called Avant Link, And so as people just come through there, we just pay out commission. It's all rev share based deals. So, and again, it seems to be really picking up steam in the States. Just as like, you've got these like loyal readers on email, and we sort of get like that top feature in an email. And that seems to drive more than sort of what you get from a Facebook ad in that short period of time.
Nice.
And then I'd say that the fourth piece that we were looking into quite heavily, and we're sort of a little bit reluctant now, just based on what we've heard from industry side, was like podcasts. But you know, we've heard like a little bit of this mixed review of like podcasts listen, you know, rates are down because no one's commuting and going to work anymore and listening to as much podcasts. But we are dabbling in it, and we do have a plan to be pretty aggressive when we sort of feel like we've got things back up and running at full steam.
Nice. Well, this podcast got you 2 sales because Dave and I both bought more pairs, and I'm already a lifetime user.
Just give me access to your back end Facebook and Instagram accounts. Let me run some ads through you guys. You know.
Yeah, give me a UTM code, and I will definitely, once we release this, we'll drive a few more sales. I've got a big US audience.
Yeah. Sweet.
That's awesome. Well, cool. Thank you guys so much for coming on today. Gary, if you had one of the things we didn't really touch on that I think is interesting is sort of the company philosophy. Maybe we could end on this a little bit, because we're, you know, I keep bringing up Vessi. We had this cast with them where they talked a lot about quality consumerism, about sort of like making the world better. You know, starting with their own local community. They're actually doing a lot with like PPE donations and some other interesting things. And I know that DUER has a bit of a philosophical bent when it comes to consumerism and making products that last. If you could maybe end us off with like a little bit of a note around your thinking around that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been outspoken for many years on the sustainability, and actually been really sort of felt like I was a voice, a lone voice in our industry, at least on the fashion side, because everybody was really the talking about organic cotton and the use of pesticides and stuff in this. And to me, they were just missing the biggest issue is consumerism and people throwing this stuff into landfills or sending it back to Africa, which kills the local economies. It's just this overabundance of buying stuff. I was going to use another word, but buying stuff that is poorly made and isn't maybe even really required. And that, to me, that's the singular issue. So if we can offer a product that's more versatile, that you don't need as much clothing in your closet because you just need a few pairs of really well-made pants that can last you doing all the things you do in a day, then I think we're doing the world a service. I mean, it's not much loftier than that. One of our taglines is to get dressed and get on with it. And the implicit in that is sort of my firmly held belief that, look, it's just clothing. It's not what's important in life, you know, like just get some stuff that suits you. And then let's talk about meaningful stuff, not clothing, right? It's just a bunch of rags sewn together, right? So that's pretty much.
I love it. For me, the reason I love DUER, it's funny, the way that I've been thinking about it, the reason I love DUER is that it enables the things and also makes me want to do the things I love to do more. So I'm a big avid bike rider, love taking rides on the bike. And if I'm wearing, you know, one of my pairs of jeans that I might still have that doesn't have stretch in it, which I don't know why I haven't burned any jeans that don't have stretch in them, honestly, at this point. But I'm less likely to take a bike ride in a pair of jeans that don't have a stretch in it, just because I know they're going to be uncomfortable. They might chafe or whatever. But yeah, that feeling of, you know, whether I got to hit a yoga class, you know, impromptu or whatever, you know, whatever I might want to do that might be better for me as a person, DUER's there for me to you know, support me in those issues as I stretch.
Well, you know, that's music to my ears. I will tell you that my greatest pride in what we're doing doesn't really come even from top line or bottom line. It's what I constantly get texts and emails and different ways of communicating to me that, you know, I used to take elevators or escalators and now I run up the stairs, like stuff like this. Or I was eating dinner and my kids' coach phoned me and said the referee never showed up to ref the hockey game, and I took off my jacket and I put on my skates and I went on and refed in your jeans. Like, you know, stuff like that is really what, you know, really turns me on. Yeah.
And each of those things are angles, right? Each of those things are perfect angles that can be crystallized in your ads as well. And the angles are really where we find, that really move the needle is those personal stories, those sort of things that just unlock people's minds when they think about a product. Jeans cool enough to ski in. No, maybe not quite.
We do have the waterproof ones, so you never know.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, thank you guys for coming on the hot seat today. This was really awesome. Appreciate it. And I really would love to stay in touch as you guys continue to dominate the e-commerce space.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.